Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about how to build beautiful intranets, tips and tricks from the product team. My name is Kathy Dew, and I'm a senior program manager on the SharePoint team focused on branding.
Hi, and I'm Katie Swanson, a senior product designer on the SharePoint team with a focus in customer success. When it comes to designing branded, beautiful, and performant sites and pages, you want to use these 4 topics to plan and build it. Apply your brand identity. Engage and motivate with visual storytelling. Increase user experience with content structure. And drive identity, values, and strategy consistently.
There are 2 core elements of branding in SharePoint that we're going to focus on today. The first of these is brand application. As a part of brand application, you will have several different components that come into this. Logos being the first. These are the core areas that you use to identify your sites and go forth with it. Navigation is the next piece. This is the next piece that really comes through and allows you to guide users through your sites. Then you have theming. This is the way that you really are able to reinforce your brand application with colors and images. This is one core section for brand application. The second is content structure. We're going to deeply go into content structure today, and one of the elements that we're going to focus on is content. What do you need to think about when you're going forward with planning your sites and the content that will be included in them? What is the imagery that you will be using in your sites, and how does that connect with both your brand and your content? And then the layout. How do you make your sites visually appealing and content flow easily across the sites? So for this session, we're going to go into both brand application and content structure. First up, we're going to look at brand application. This is one of the foundations for branding and customizing your sites. The first core component we want to look at in brand application are logos. How do you reinforce your brand identity while orienting your users across your sites? The first component of these is the organization logo. This is included at the very top of your screen and is more focused on your organization. You are able to customize this with a logo and a background color to really go forth and set this across the entire Microsoft 365 suite. As you move down from there, the second component of logo and navigation is your hub navigation. If you've chosen to make your site a hub or to connect your site to a hub, you have this additional navigation and logo that can help to guide through your information architecture of how your sites connect together and truly guide your users through the experiences within the sites connected. The final piece of this is the site logo and navigation that's local to the site that the user is on. This is another great tool to really give a site an identity, to tie it into your organization, and to highlight it across the board. And then the navigation for that site gives people a great way to dive into it. If you look at these, a great tip for these is to focus on using 3 different logos. Try not to repeat the logo. Give yourself some great tips and tricks around picking different font sizes, text locations, and colors to really kind of differentiate between the 3 levels of logo. Also note that the organization logo that you configure across the M365 tenant is the same branding that comes across in the SharePoint mobile application. So you can configure this once and have that great organization logo and theme come into your SharePoint mobile application. Next, I want to talk to you a bit about navigation and wayfinding, this ability to provide a flexible branding system throughout your sites. As we start to focus on the different navigation aspects throughout SharePoint and SharePoint Online, you'll notice again that organization logo at the top is a great place to go through and create a centralized link to reinforce that brand identity of your organization with a logo and a theme color across that background. Again, you set this up in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. One of the new components that you'll hear a lot about recently is the introduction of global navigation. Our global navigation is introduced in a left bar, and you'll hear more about this as we go through this session and others. This is going to have the ability to use a default icon and create a separate set of navigation that's global across all of your sites and across products to help you reinforce how your users are able to guide themselves through the environment. So we really think of the organization logo and the global nav as a single concept together that are allowed to reinforce each other, to really help to guide people in that global aspect for your organization. Again, as we move down level, next up is our hub navigation. Hub navigation really helps to reinforce that information architecture throughout your sites. It's that ability to group things together and really start to make them connected, and as they work across, to give users a consistent experience within that department or organization that you've set up and connected together. Then moving down again into the site navigation. Be fearless. Don't be afraid to adapt and make changes to each of your navigation levels. Test these out with users. See what makes the most sense to them and what creates the least amount of confusion for them as they go through. One of the things you will hear us reinforce and talk about a lot in these series of sessions is our introduction of global navigation and how this ties into your information architecture and how you think about planning your sites with this global navigation concept. Please make sure to tune in to our related session on global navigation to learn even more about this and how you can choose the icon at the top of your global navigation to customize this for your organization. There are 3 different options and each have their great purpose and ideal. Showcasing in this, we're going to showcase the home button, which is a great home location for anyone in your organization. Next, another key component of navigation and wayfinding is the site header. This is the first thing that users see when they come to your site. It's right at the top and is a great way to reinforce where users are within your organization and within your SharePoint sites. We have 4 distinct site header layouts that are available to be used throughout. The first being our extended header, which I'll go into a bit more detail as this is a new header option. And you'll get to hear a little bit more about some tips and tricks for using extended header in another slide. Next up is our standard header type, our compact header type, which both should be fairly familiar to you if you've been working with SharePoint. They are great navigation headers to reinforce your brand with a background color and a logo, as well as different locations for your navigation, depending on which layout type. Our last header is, again, another new header type that we've introduced. It's our minimal header. Our minimal header is actually one that came highly requested. We previously introduced a header state that we call shy header. So when you scroll on a long page, you get a minimal header at the top of the page that gives you a smaller surface area and allows you to focus more of the content on that page. We heard great feedback from our shy header state that people wanted to use that same state all of the time. So we're really thrilled to be introducing a minimal header type that you'll be able to use in your sites as well. Paired with it, our site navigation. Site navigation is another core component of navigation and wayfinding. What you'll notice is that we have 3 different types of site navigation. 2 of them are available on our communication sites, being our mega menu and our cascading site navigation type. And you can see you can make those option choices through our change the look pane. And then on our team sites, if you happen to be using our team site template, you get our quick launch navigation, which appears on the left side of the page. Great choices for any of these, but try to pick which one that helps you reinforce your navigation, whether it be underneath headings or giving people the easiest access to find the things that they need to do their jobs within your sites. Now I want to delve a little bit deeper into that new header type, the extended header, and talk to you a little bit about what's included in it and what are some of our best tips and tricks for using this header type, as it is new and most people will want to try it out, and there's some great tips and tricks to things to think about and avoid. Our extended header type introduces the ability to add a background image into the header. Now, when you introduce a background image into the header, you start to run into some issues with the logo. So you really have to think about and be conscious about the type of image that you're introducing into this extended header type. There's 3 core categories of image that you might consider putting into here. So we've provided some examples of each of these. The first that you see on the screen is the brand photography. Make sure that you're picking images that are in the background that are not very busy, that include a single 1 or 2 focal points that you can focus on, and give a lot of clear space in the area that you want to have your site logo. One of the other things you will notice is that in this particular header type, you see that site logo is much larger and has the option to be centered. Through this new extended header type, because we have made some adjustments to it, you are going to be able to do these things. So as you start to make adjustments to the site logo, you really have to be conscious of what you do with the images that you upload into the background of this. So brand photography is one great option. Another great option is to go with a brand pattern. If you have any type of pattern schema that you're working on within your organization that really ties to your brand, making use of the extended header to put that brand pattern in the background, tie into your theme, tie into the images that you're using throughout your sites. It's a really great way to reinforce that. And the last option that we would recommend that you put into the extended header is a brand illustration. Taking an illustration that ties into your brand to that particular site that you're working in and really going in and customizing something for that header type. But really do make use and be thoughtful when you are using the extended header. It's a great way to reinforce a hub, a home site, or one of those specialized sites within your organization. Not necessarily the best site header option for every site within your organization. So really be thoughtful about how you would use extended header, and you'll get to see it throughout all of the different SharePoint demos. And so watch and see how we're showcasing it as well, because we've got some great tips in how we're using it. Our last core component of navigation is our footer. And with the footer, we've introduced footers into pages on communication sites. We have 2 out-of-the-box footer types, our simple footer and our extended footer. As you see, our 2 core out-of-the-box footer types come with the option to have a logo and have the option to have some links, the differencing being the height of this footer and how many links you get to include, whether you have that stacked set of links in extended or just a single line of links in the simple. Now, one thing to note, if you do happen to switch between footer types, if you go from extended to simple, you only keep that top layer. If you go from simple to extended, you get that top layer and then can add on to it. So definitely something to consider as you're playing around with the footer option that you best desire to help provide navigation and wayfinding in your sites. The third example on the page is a great example of a SharePoint framework solution. It's included in our P&P, our patterns and practices samples, and you can go and add this custom developed footer into your sites and really take it further than our existing out-of-the-box solutions. You can't go wrong with any of these 3 footers added to your communication site pages. Now, lastly, the last core component I want to talk to you about branding-wise is theming. With theming, it really gives you that option to emphasize your brand with color and to make customizations to take it and cater it to your brand. Now, one of the big things I want to highlight with this is that we recently changed the SharePoint brand from a blue brand to a teal brand. And with that, we have made the adjustment for the default theme in your sites when you create a new site, or if you had not customized your sites, we've recently made that change to move them from blue to teal. So you may have been familiar with our blue site, but now we have shifted them over to teal. So now as you create new sites, we're shifting them over to teal. But don't think that this is the only way that you can do this. If you want to create your own theme, go out and use our Microsoft Fluent UI theme designer to create your own custom themes to tie into the Microsoft Fluent system. So what you'll see here is if you go to aka.ms/theme designer, you have the option to go in and pick your colors. Some great things in here. You can customize it further, but it has a built-in accessibility checker, which is huge when it comes to implementing your brand throughout your sites. Making sure that you are creating accessible color schemes that will be able to be seen and used by all of your users is a core thing that we're really highlighting when it comes to making changes to branding and theming. So really go in and make use of this tool to confirm that your brand colors are indeed accessible and how they would be implemented within SharePoint. And then once you've created your theme, you can export it and then use PowerShell to upload that into your own sites. So now you're able to create great looking custom themes across your organization that are tied to your organization colors. And you don't have to stick to a single custom theme. Go in and create multiple custom themes. If you have multiple hubs, you have multiple departments, organizations, think about creating themes for each of them. Install those themes. They become available in the Change the Look panel for all site owners to use. And then you can go in and customize that further. If you don't want the out-of-the-box SharePoint provided themes to show up, you can actually remove those and just have your custom themes there. Themes can also be applied by site design. So if you're wanting to create an automated way for people to do this when they create a new site, automatically have the theme applied, you can do that through a site design. So it makes it much easier to apply your brand consistently throughout your sites. Now, let's jump into a quick demo and look at the header and our theme options and what you can do and how you can make a big impact in your sites with just a few customization changes. As you saw, there are a lot of really great options when it comes to customizing the look of your site with brand. That brand application can really emphasize and provide insight for your users for how they navigate and what experiences they can expect within your sites. Now let's take a look at our Contoso Give site. Our Contoso Give site is one of our marquee employee program sites. It is a specialized site designed to give information to our employees about our employee giving campaign. If you look at our site as it exists today, we have that extended header in use. Couple of key things to point out with that extended header. We're using the extended header and it's using a larger logo option. So you see we have Contoso Give in a very large format in the center of this header. With the extended header, we're giving you the option to select a left, a center, or a right alignment of your logo. So really to give you some of that extra impact. Another thing with the extended header choice for Contoso Give is the image choice. This image choice has a lot of negative space for that logo to truly pop out and just a few visual aspects to really make it shine. But as we're working through the content of the site for some upcoming changes, one of the things we want to do is to change that header and to give more emphasis on the content of the site. And luckily, we have a great header option and minimal header that we can change it to. Another big change we want to make is changing the theme of the site. We really want to emphasize with a couple of more bright and vibrant colors. So we're going to go through and change up the theme. So let's get started making these changes in the brand application on the Contoso Give site so we can really see how they impact. First, we start out by going to our gear and going to our settings pane. In our settings pane, we're going to go down and select Change the Look. Change the Look is where all of those great brand application options are included for our site owners to make those decisions about how the brand gets applied to the site. First, we're going to start out in the header option. As we go into that header pane, you'll notice we have 4 great header options to choose from. And then you'll see some of the changes and configuration options will change based off the header that we choose. So as I come in and switch from the extended to the minimal, you'll see some of those configuration options change right away. And you'll also notice that that change reflects within the preview of our site. So I can see what I'm doing by changing the configuration in the pane in my site right away. So with this, I know that I'm going to continue to use that dark background color for my site header background with minimal. But one of the things you'll notice is we were using that much larger, that much wider site logo. And you'll see that in using that, it's scaled down. It's much smaller. It's a little bit hard to read. So we want to make some changes there. So as we come back into our pane, into the display section, you'll notice the site logo thumbnail. Now, this is a great option for us. The site logo thumbnail gives us the ability to create and upload and set that square profile. How do we want our site logo to appear in places like search and in our site cards on SharePoint Home and other great locations? So really giving you some of those dial-in features for the brand. The next thing you'll see is that site logo. We want to change that from that big, broad Contoso give to our very customized site logo. We're just going to use the icon. So we're going to come in and hit change and select the new logo that we want to use. As we select and change that logo, you'll notice right away, once I've changed that logo out, a change in that preview of the site header. And you'll see now I've moved back to a much larger version of that icon, but you might notice that it doesn't have any text to associate with that. We just jump from our icon straight into our navigation. In our display section, another configuration option that you will see is the ability to toggle on and off the site title visibility. So we're going to go in and turn the site title on because we're now not using text in our logo. So it really gives us that ability to now use the default site title as how we want to give that text. So as I turn that on, you see our site title of Give show up in our site header. So these are some really great header options that really give us the ability to change and customize the site. Already a drastic difference from what we started with. Let's go ahead and save that, and then we're going to move on to working with the theme. So again, as we save that, you see those changes reflect into the site. Now let's go back into the change the look and go into our theme section and change how our theme is reflected in the site. One of the things you'll notice as I open up the theme section is there's a whole great section called company themes. These are our custom themes that have been created and uploaded for the tenant through PowerShell for Contoso specifically. And then below that, you see those out-of-the-box SharePoint themes that I can choose as well. But for this, we really want to make this site have some visual impact and differentiate it from other sites. So with that, we're going to go ahead and choose our Contoso dark theme because the dark theme is one that we reserve for special sites. So we're going to choose that dark theme. And as I make that change, you see it immediately reflect across the site. I see that change. I see that site header because we selected that dark change into that teal. It's a really great now vibrant punch of how the content starts to come alive on the site. So we're going to go ahead and save that change. And as we save that change, this just applies and validates that theme across my page. So now my site's using that dark theme. It's got the minimal header applied, and you can see with just a few minor customizations how much of a difference it made to the branding of this site. Great. Now that we've had a chance to look at some of those small changes that make a big impact in your site, Katie's going to take over and talk to you all about the content structure components that we talked about as a core element of brand application.
Thanks, Kathy. And like she said, I'm going to dive into content structure. Content structure, also known as structured content, in the digitally published industry has become a bit of a buzzword, a term you hear so often it loses its meaning. However, it's a very powerful digital content configuration model that determines how we find, understand, share, and use information. We can't talk about content structure without first talking about content. Everyone loves beauty. Everyone loves cool new design features. Everyone's also a critic, but as visitors, we need more than beauty. We need information. And as site owners, we need results. Listen, I love beautiful design just as much as anyone. It was actually why I got into this industry. But in design, we create containers for content, and the visitors come for the content and not the containers. Now, I define content broadly as the stuff in your sites. This may include copy, images, video, documents, data, and so much more. But let's get this out of the way. Content development is always going to be the hardest part of a site project. A content strategy allows you to plan, create, deliver, and govern site content. Now, to be honest, I feel like I could spend 45 minutes just talking about content strategy alone. However, here are some key takeaways I'd recommend. While they're all very important in the process, the bookends are what I'd like you most to take away from this. Having clearly defined content goals will help you plan, produce, and track everything you need. But more importantly, you're going to want to maintain and scale that content. If you're building a site that is widely consumed by your company or organization, there's nothing worse than stale content. Now, there is such a thing as evergreen content, which is the content that doesn't go out of date. It revolves around a topic that's always relevant to readers, regardless of the current news cycle or season. But if your goal is to promote and provide engagement across your team or company, keep your content fresh and make sure to perform site audits at least once a year. Now, designing for density. I often say having too much of a good thing isn't always a good thing. Let's talk about this information density. The greater the information density, the greater the amount the content visitor will see when they come to your site or page. Because of this tie into the content, the information density has an immediate impact on the user's cognitive load, which in turn is going to have a huge impact on the site's navigability, usability, and user experience. While it's tempting to load up your site with a lot of content, moderation and minimalism are key to ensuring perfect user friendliness. When designing, it's helpful to think how much content your user can reasonably handle without being bogged down by it. The more content they encounter, the longer it's going to take for them to complete a certain task or to even get to what the goal of the page is. Now, white space allows the content in your visitor's eyes room to breathe. Active white space is possibly the most important factor to be taken into consideration in content-intensive layouts. Boxes, borders, graphical planes segment the information into visual categories. An intuitive search method, such as using quick links mapped to header anchors, will allow your users to jump straight into the information they need. Grids, although not always necessarily comprehensive, keep content within a rigid, consistent structure, helping to reduce the effort required to process it. And visual hierarchy is the arrangement of graphical elements in a design in order of importance of each element. Remember, users scan, not read, online. Make it easy for users to pick out information of interest by writing for the web. Use short sentences and paragraphs, bulleted lists, headings, and bolded keywords. When you're designing for density, you really need to prioritize. You should clearly establish what content is required by the user upfront and what can be hidden. Once you figure that out, make that hidden content really easy to find when needed. Categorize your content in a way that makes sense to your user, not to you, nor your client, nor your colleagues. And be ruthless in identifying and eliminating internal jargon and acronyms that you toss around the usual day in the office. Designing for density really takes a whole new level of importance when talking about content-rich site, not only for the user's sake, but for minimizing future maintenance headaches. For example, keep related image assets all the exact same dimensions so they can be reused seamlessly across the site. Speaking of images, an image speaks 1,000 words. Not the most common proverb, right? Everybody uses that to describe the importance of an image. And in online generation where skimming and scanning is the general practice, the importance of these 1,000 words is even greater. The human brain responds to images almost 50,000 times faster than text. Visual storytelling, or passing on a lot of information through relatively simple visual aid. Photographs, maps, and data visualizations, these are all tools of visual storytelling. But to use them effectively, remember the most important part of any kind of storytelling is your audience. Use images that complement your content while staying true to your brand. Use photos with a minimum number of colors and detail to avoid visual clutter. Instead, consider using a photo where the colors match your theme of the site. Or if you can't find one, look for an image that might contain complementary colors, or even just a black and white. That matches well with any kind of color scheme. Use images as part of the story. We all love a good story, and storytelling is usually made of relevant words and sometimes pictures crafted together. Images can be used to highlight a specific talking point or to simply add visual aesthetics to a page. Full width images can be a great way to provide a visual break or to segue into the next topic. The image you select for your page header or the first image on your page will be selected and used for your news thumbnail. The thumbnail and description are used in places like search results, SharePoint News, News Digest, or even in email messages. And if you're not happy with the news post preview image, there's a quick and easy way to update it. In edit mode, click Page Details in the command bar. Now, once you're in there, you'll see Change Thumbnail and follow the prompts. The details of this panel are what creates your metadata in the post. Speaking of people with imperfect vision, as I'm reading this without my glasses, users with low or no vision use a screen reader to access your site. Screen readers go through a web page's code and read all the visible content on the page. An image does not have machine readable content, so readers need to rely on the image's alt text to completely and accurately describe the image, content, and function. SharePoint lets you easily add alternative text, also known as alt text, for all your multimedia content and stock images. It shouldn't come as a surprise that viewers are 80% more likely to consume your content if it contains engaging visuals. When you need the perfect image for your site and you don't have the time, budget, or expertise to create your own, you may use a stock photo or illustration. You can use a stock image feature available in the file picker. There are thousands of royalty-free, high-quality, high-resolution images to choose from to make your content look great. Org assets, when they're set up, SharePoint offers your organization as one of those sources in the image picker. Asset libraries drive consistency by enabling organizations to have centralized location for hosting and sharing assets to site authors, news creators, and end users. Consistency means your audience is being exposed to core messages, visual branding, and other brand elements repeatedly, which can help to solidify brand recognition. And the last part of content structure is layout. For organizations whose work revolves around providing perspective and thought leadership, if how content is designed and delivered isn't on par with quality of the thinking it contains, they're selling themselves short and undermining the very ideas they seek to advance. For organizations whose missions are advanced by publishing and sharing knowledge, the design of that content says a lot about the audiences can expect from it. But before I jump into all things about layout, let's chat. There is no fold, period. There, I said it. Let's stop the fold madness right now. The web has evolved and so have our users, and there's plenty of research to prove it. In understood context, people will scroll. The evidence is all in favor of scrolling. Not only do the analytics support it, usability testing demonstrates it. And every new device is a scrolling machine. Anything with a piece of glass as an interface are made to scroll. And the scrolling gesture is probably the easiest gesture of all. It's just a slide of your finger. Visual hierarchy is the arrangement of graphic elements in a design in order of importance of each element. Strong visual hierarchy makes the difference between a site layout design that guides users to the action you want them to take and a site that just looks nice. Humans are incredibly visual beings, and when it comes to consuming content online, we often scan the page to quickly discern whether or not we'll find what we need before diving in. It's important to correlate size with the importance in any design. The most important information should be the biggest on the page and demand the most attention. Color. Color can be a useful tool to break up monotonous content or draw the reader's attention to aspects on the page. If your site or page features different types of content, clearly define sections by using dividers or section backgrounds. Structure the page to facilitate scanning and help users not ignore large chunks on the page in a single glance. Good formatting encourages visitors to engage with the content throughout the page and find the most important information faster. Using type well increases the amount of content read on your site. The type is all about detail. Left-aligned paragraphs deliver a straight left edge. This anchors the reader so they know where the next line is and where it will start. Active white space. White space not only creates harmony, balance, and helps to brand design, it can also be used to lead the reader from one element to another. The main goals are to make the website look simple and uncluttered and to deliver information that our readers will enjoy and appreciate. White space should not be considered merely blank space. It's the element of design that enables the objects on the page to exist. If the space that balances things out reminds us that the designs are beautiful. You don't need to create a layout overcrowded with text and images just to deliver a clear message. Picking a style that matches your brand will help you communicate your message more effectively. On top of providing users a quick starting point, page templates allow for consistent content structures and look and feel across your site. When I'm working on a site, I often roll these templates into the content planning. This allows for them to be part of the package rather than an afterthought. And the best news of all is we've been listening. And I'd like to introduce site templates. And definitely learn more about this in the Architecting Your Intelligent Intranet session. I'm not going to dive into it, but we are bringing these into the product. To help users get started quickly, we have built out a set of in-product SharePoint site templates to make it easier to build beautiful and functional SharePoint sites. Don't spend brain cycles thinking about designing a site. Use a template that immediately gets you started and has already been purposely built out to meet the needs for a scenario and looks great. Now, I'm going to demo how to create a beautiful looking page by adding all of these items that we talked about in content structure. Well, I hope you were able to learn some helpful tips and tricks you can use to create your next great looking layout. In this demo, I'm going to take those tips and tricks and show you how to apply them for a pretty common scenario, designing and publishing a newsletter. I'm going to apply the principles of designing for density, using imagery, as well as layout techniques to provide the best user experience. So first, let's take a look at what we're actually going to build. Megan is actually going to provide the content, and then I'm going to go in and kind of clean it up. This intro section utilizes a section background color and a custom shape divider to create a clearly defined section. Looks like the content overall has a nice scannability to it, using a great use of content checking, headlines, bullets, and bold text. Good type formatting and alignments of elements with the imagery utilizing a grid format. All with a great sense of harmony and balance with active white space for emphasis of structure. So let's go ahead and switch over and look at Megan's draft. She's already provided all the content, but of course, I'm going to go in and give it a nice design review and then also add in some of the missing image assets. So great, let's get started. Like we said, I want to bring some emphasis to the opening section. We're going to go ahead and do this by adding some color and a custom section divider. Edit the section and go ahead and put in a section background. I'm going to choose strong, give it that nice emphasis. Underneath here, we're going to add a full width section. To create that shape divider, we're going to put in a full width section with an image in the background. We're going to go ahead and select image. So shape dividers are stylized elements used to separate sections. You can create a shape that best matches your overall brand or one that can draw the reader's attention to aspects of the page. The max size you'll want to make this image asset is 2,560 pixels. Anything above that, SharePoint's actually going to compress. So you might as well save on your file size and not size it any larger. You'll also want to save this as a ping so that it has a transparent background. So once you place this image, you'll see that it creates this shape element, providing a nice emphasis and separation of the opening section. Great, so the next thing we're going to do is come down here and actually clearly define the sections. These are a little close together, so we're going to add some active white space as well as a divider between the two. And we can do that all in one extra section here. We'll add a one column. We're going to go ahead and add a spacer. I'm going to go ahead and bring that down to 16 pixels. I'm going to duplicate that. So we have two now. And then in between those, I'm going to add the divider. And that'll give us a nice buffer between the sections, clearly defining them. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is bring in the image assets. Megan was promoting a recent contest she ran throughout the company. The images we're bringing in are provided across the globe from different employees that they captured by using their product, the Mark 8 quadcopter. So not only are we going to see a global reach here, but we're also going to see a global view. So there are 6. Let's go ahead and duplicate this to keep this grid. And we'll go in. Megan said that she put these in the org asset. So let's go ahead and edit this, and we'll change the image asset. And in the picker, we'll see your organization. We have our employee showcase right here. And we'll bring in that first image. We want to make it accessible. So 2 things we'll definitely do here is we'll add this caption in, place that placeholder with the location. And then we'll also bring in the descriptive text. So alt text, remind you, an image does not have machine readable content. So screen readers need to rely on the image's alt text to completely and accurately describe the image, content, and function. And it should be brief and tell the listener why the picture is important. So in this case, we're just going to give this brief overview on the alternative text of this one. Megan provided, which is an aerial view, and it gives a little bit of description of the sea fog that's coming up the side. Beautiful. So now I showed you the one. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of editing magic and hurry along the rest of the 5. And then we'll come back and I'll show you how you can edit these so they're all the same size. Great. So now that I have all of the assets brought in, I'm going to show you how to crop these to make a nice grid layout. And as you can see, all of these images have a little bit different sizing. So if you come in and you on your edit, we're just going to do a aspect ratio that's the same for all of them. I'm going to go through and add the 3/2. We'll save it for each one. Great, and there you have it. So now all of our images are the same size, creating this really nice grid. So now the last thing I'm going to do is show you how to use visual hierarchy in typography. SharePoint does offer a pull quote option in its rich text formatting. However, I thought I'd share an alternative that provides a nice editorial layout. And I guess if you've provisioned any of the lookbook sites, you may have come across this in use. I like to play with typography and web design as I feel it's an important element to bring in more attention to the page. So let's go ahead and grab this right here. We're going to go ahead and bring this up. We're going to treat it somewhat like a pull quote, so we definitely want some hierarchy to it. These quote marks are actually Unicode. You can go to unicode-table.com and get a whole bunch of different kind of elements like this, similar to an emoji. They'll come in, but they'll be uniformly coded for all browsers. So here we're going to go ahead and add both some size and some color to kind of dramatize it, if you will. And then the pull code itself, we're going to go ahead and italicize that, but we're going to bring that up to a size 24. Gives it a nice visual hierarchy, make sure that you can actually see it. At the same time, this now looks very almost lost. We kind of want to give this a little bit more visual prominence, but oddly enough, I'm going to bring it down in size because I'm going to bold it. If you have it too big and bold, then it might overpower. Now it looks like there's a great harmony between the two, balancing it out. So speaking of good formatting does encourage visitors to engage with your content throughout the page and find the most important information faster. And using type well is going to increase the amount of content that's read on your site. Type is all about the detail. Left aligned paragraphs deliver straight left edge. This anchors our readers so they know where the next line will start each time. And this means paragraphs are read faster, increasing the number of articles they are likely to read, which of course, we love that engagement. So let's go ahead and republish this and check it out. Well, as you can see, in regards to designing for density, there's a great use of hierarchy, both in color, size, headlines, bolded text, and overall scannable content. It's also a great use of white space, breaking up graphical planes, and as well as utilizing the grid for layout. And as we know, our images all include their alt text, making them accessible for screen readers. And their overall layout provides a great user experience as it takes into consideration scannability as well as visual interest. Well, I hope you were able to learn more about content structure, as well as get valuable tips and tricks for your next SharePoint project. Keep in mind that while it's tempting to load up a site with a lot of content, moderation and minimalism are going to be the key to ensuring perfect user friendliness. Remember that users scan, not read, online. Make it easy for users to pick out information of interest and always, always design with their best interest in mind. We do have a couple recommended sessions to kind of jump off from this. Definitely look at these at aka.ms Virtual Hub.
Wow, Katie, so many great insights and tips for people to think about when it comes to content. Thank you for sharing those. I hope that combining the two, brand application and content structure together, has been useful for you. But we want to hear from you. What are the features that you want to see in SharePoint? Please make use of our user voice at sharepoint.uservoice.com to share your product suggestions. What are the features that you want to see? Share, vote, discuss. Also, don't hesitate to reach out to us on Twitter or to start conversation in the Microsoft technical community. We'd love to hear from you.
And as always, visit the SharePoint Lookbook. Discover the modern experiences you can build with SharePoint in Microsoft 365. Lookbook.microsoft.com.
Thank you for going through the journey today of how to build a beautifully designed intranet. We look forward to hearing from you in the future and hope that you have great success in building fantastic looking SharePoint sites.